Now that you've have your project idea approved, it's now time to move on to the next couple steps, which are to identify your organization and develop a letter of intent. So I have skipped forward to worksheet number 9 for the purpose of you to really understand the organization that you're going to be writing the grant for. So that's why I like to skip ahead to this step, because you're not working for that organization necessarily, so this provides that opportunity to really learn more about them. Also, to make sure they have that nonprofit status. So one key way to know that they have the nonprofit status is if you see the 501c3. You can find most of the organization background information on organization's website. A lot of times it's in the About Us page. If you do have a connection or someone you know at the organization, you can also reach out and ask them for some of this information if you can't find it. But on the left here, make sure to include the name of the organization. Sometimes people accidentally leave that off, where it's located, and particularly, if it's a national organization, and make sure to include the local organization that you're going to be applying for the grant for. The legal status should be that 501c3. When it was founded, include the mission and who their target population is, their main programs, and then a summary of the needs statement. So you're going to be actually doing the research behind the needs statement next week, but this is going to just kind of summarize that unmet community need that your project is going to work to accomplish. Then for accomplishments here, include items such as past awards that have been received, large grants or funding that has been received. Also could be included, number of people served, or meals served if it was like a Meals on Wheels type program. And then the personnel, you're going to want to include, demonstrate capacity that the organization has people that are going to be able to implement the plan. So include both, personnel, staff within the organization, as well as volunteers. So I do have an example, and this example is on Moodle. It is from the textbook as well. It's from a Meals Consortium, but this will help give you some guidance on what to put in these section as well. But if you find other accomplishments or additional programs, include those there. The more detail you can get into these worksheets at the start, the better. One, you're going to get feedback from me, and two, you won't have to look for it later. And three, it's just going to really help you develop good, solid sections as you write the grant later on. The next worksheet that you're going to be working on is going to be a letter of intent. And so most organizations and foundations and funders are going to require a letter of intent, especially if you've never worked with them before, they're unaware of your organization. This is a way for you to share about the project that you're interested in doing, share about the need that needs to be met, and your organization as well. So it's kind of, as the textbook said, it's a sneak peek into what you're asking for. It does also include how much you're asking for, and this is a really good way to let the funder in and think about it. Maybe talk to people within the foundation to see if it's going to be a good match. Sometimes foundations will require a letter of intent prior to inviting you to submit a full proposal. So this is something that is often a way to also build relationships with funders, and by email is a really good approach, because again, it gives them time to think about it. You can call maybe a week later and say, have you had a chance to read the letter of intent that I sent, and what do you think about the idea? If you haven't received an email response back. You can also ask to meet in person if you feel that's appropriate, but that soft kind of ask and letting them review it and see if it's a good match for them. But this is really where you want to show the foundation that it is a good match. So making sure that you find out what it is that they fund, their interest areas. Is it education? Is it health programs, human service type programs? So, or capital campaign projects versus, even personnel. Most, like I said, aren't going to fund salaries, but there are some that do. So this first one here, there is not an example of this on Moodle, but you do want to use your textbook a little bit here and just read through the sections, section 2 or step 2 for developing this. But the purpose of the intent, again, is to share with the funder about your project. And so it's being sent to the foundation. So if you happen to find a foundation that's going to be a good match for your project, you can hypothetically be writing it for that foundation. For example, if you were looking through community foundations in your area, or it can certainly be to the Dr. Hall Foundation or Community Health Foundation from the MPH program here. So some of these questions are going to come from other worksheets and also help you in kind of developing your proposal as you proceed. So the organization funding date and when it was incorporated, the mission again. Here, you also want to look at long-term goals for the organization and the programs that specifically support those goals for 4 and 5. Again, what that need is that the funding is seeking to address. And then this is a very important one, and how is the need related to programs, long-term goals, and mission. So really making that connection to it, and so that they see, it's meeting the constituents and the populations that you've served, and how also how it links to the funder. So your project, a little bit of the description here and the expected outcome that you anticipate after the first year. The total cost for your proposed idea. So I recommend for this, just as you're learning to write a grant, that you just do it for 1 year and for one project. So keeping it small, 5 to 15,000 is great. We don't want you to get kind of hung up on the budget. People in the past, that have done really, 50,000, 100,000 type budgets, the budget gets very complicated. And funders, honestly, a lot of times will look at the budget first. And I don't want you to not do well on this project because of the budget. However, if you have an idea that is a larger budget, certainly you can go for it, and I will help support you in trying to make it the best that it can be. I have a student in my in-person class right now that she's going to do it for the organization she's with and wants to write it for a van to be able to expand services. And of course, that's going to be more than the $5,000 or $15,000 range. And I said, of course, and that's not going to be a very complicated budget either, but I'm going to work with her for that. So it'll be larger. So that would be down here with the budget and how much do you want from the funder? So ideally, you're going to be able to say, the project may be 15,000. I'm asking for 10,000 from the foundation. We're getting 5,000 from another grant, or we anticipate doing some fundraising. So they do like to see multiple funders, or that you're going to be able to pay for some of it in kind or in-house. And then for who to be contacted, this can be you as the contact, or oftentimes it's going to be the executive director. So in this case, you can put yourself, because you're the one that's kind of one that's writing it, or if you want to go ahead and put the executive director, but or both would be appropriate too. So these two will get you going forward, and then next week and the next worksheet will be on really looking at the research and providing the evidence behind the need. So the most evidence-based part is going to be next week in terms of demonstrating that community need and how your organization will be able to meet that. So definitely look at the example online for worksheet number 9. And if you have any questions, let me know, and then upload your completed worksheets to your Google folder. Thank you.